Story 1: The Disappearance of a Romantic Date. Valentine's Day is supposed to be a celebration of love, flowers, candlelit dinners, and heartfelt gestures. But for Annette Campos and Jake Reynolds, what started as a romantic evening turned into a terrifying mystery that left a small town shaken and searching for answers. Annette and Jake had been dating for a little over 2 years. They were the kind of couple everyone admired, young, deeply in love, and seemingly perfect for each other. Annette, a 24-year-old nursing student, was known for her kindness and radiant smile. Jake, a 26-year-old mechanic, was hardworking and fiercely protective of her. On February 14th, they had dinner reservations at a cozy Italian restaurant just outside their hometown of Ridgewood, Oregon. Annette had spent hours getting ready, curling her chestnut brown hair and slipping into the red dress Jake had bought her for Christmas. Jake picked her up at 7 p.m. sharp, greeting her with a bouquet of roses and a kiss. They drove off in his black Ford pickup, excited for their romantic evening. But that would be the last time anyone saw them alive. The next morning, Annette's roommate, Lisa, woke up to find that Annette had never come home. At first, she wasn't too worried. Maybe Annette had stayed at Jake's place overnight. But as the hours passed with no response to calls or texts, Lisa's concern turned into dread. Jake's parents were experiencing the same worry. He hadn't returned home either, and his phone went straight to voicemail. By noon, both families reported them missing. The police began their investigation by retracing the couple's steps. A waitress at La Bella Vita, the restaurant where they had dined, confirmed they had left around 9:30 p.m. Security footage showed them walking out hand in hand, smiling. There was no sign of distress. But then came the chilling discovery. Jake's truck was found abandoned on the side of a quiet road, about 10 miles from town. The driver's side door was slightly ajar, and Annette's purse was still inside. There were no signs of a struggle, no blood, and no footprints leading away from the vehicle. It was as if they had vanished into thin air. For days, search parties scoured the surrounding woods, hoping for a clue, anything that might explain what had happened. Helicopters flew overhead, and volunteers combed through dense forests, calling out their names. Then a break came in the case. A truck driver passing through the area reported something unsettling. Around 10 p.m. on Valentine's night, he had seen a man and woman on the side of the road, near where Jake's truck was found. They appeared to be arguing. The woman, who matched Annette's description, looked distressed. The man grabbed her by the arm, and she struggled against him before they disappeared into the darkness. This revelation sent shockwaves through the investigation. If Annette and Jake had been arguing, what was it about? And who was the mystery man? The police focused on Jake, wondering if he might have harmed Annette. But his family swore he would never hurt her. Their relationship had been strong. No history of violence, no troubling signs. Then, something unexpected happened. A call came into the station from a woman who had seen the missing persons report on the news. She claimed to have spotted Annette, alive. She described seeing a disoriented young woman, barefoot and covered in dirt, wandering near a gas station 2 towns over. When the witness approached her, asking if she needed help, the woman panicked and ran into the woods. The police rushed to the location, but by the time they arrived, she was gone. Days turned into weeks, and hope began to dwindle. But on March 3rd, nearly 3 weeks after they disappeared, a hiker stumbled upon something horrifying. A shallow grave in the woods. Inside was Jake's body. He had been shot execution-style, a single bullet to the back of the head. His hands were tied behind his back with zip ties, and his phone had been smashed to pieces. There was still no sign of Annette. With Jake confirmed dead, the search for Annette intensified. Then, another break came, this time from surveillance footage at a truck stop about 50 miles away. At 3 a.m. on February 15th, a grainy video showed a frightened, exhausted-looking Annette entering the convenience store, looking over her shoulder as if she was being followed. She quickly bought a bottle of water and left. Moments later, a tall man in a dark hoodie entered, scanning the aisles before storming out in the same direction she had gone. This changed everything. If Annette was alive, was she on the run? Was she being held captive? And who was the man following her? The FBI joined the investigation, believing they were now dealing with something far more sinister: abduction, trafficking, or even a serial predator. The case broke wide open when authorities identified the hooded man from the truck stop footage. Dylan Marks, a drifter with a violent history. He had prior arrests for assault and had been linked to other missing persons cases. After a week-long manhunt, Dylan was tracked down and arrested at a rundown motel. And inside, police found Annette. She was alive but barely recognizable. Malnourished, bruised, and deeply traumatized. When she saw the officers, she collapsed in relief. Through tearful interviews, Annette revealed the horrifying truth. She and Jake had been driving home when they noticed a stranded car on the side of the road. Being the kind-hearted people they were, they stopped to help. That's when Dylan ambushed them at gunpoint. He forced them into his own vehicle, taking them deep into the woods. He executed Jake first, making Annette watch. Then, he kept her captive, moving from place to place, keeping her under his control. She had tried to escape multiple times, including the night she was spotted at the gas station. But he always found her. If the police hadn't caught him when they did, she knew she wouldn't have survived much longer. Dylan Marks was charged with first-degree murder, kidnapping, and multiple other felonies. He showed no remorse in court, his only response being a smirk when asked why he did it. Annette, though deeply traumatized, slowly began rebuilding her life. She honored Jake's memory by sharing her story, warning others to always be cautious. Even on the most romantic night of the year, what was supposed to be a perfect Valentine's date turned into a night of terror. A reminder that sometimes, the real horror stories aren't just found in movies. They happen in real life, in the most unexpected ways. Story 2. The Stalker Who Wouldn't Let Go. Valentine's Day is a time for love, surprises, and grand romantic gestures. But for Hannah Lawson, it became a day of terror, one that would haunt her for the rest of her life. Hannah was 27 years old, living in a quiet suburb in Colorado. She worked as a graphic designer and mostly kept to herself, enjoying her peaceful life with her golden retriever, Milo. She had been single for over a year and wasn't expecting much for Valentine's Day. That's why she was surprised when she found a small red box on her doorstep the morning of February 14th. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a heart-shaped pendant. No note, no name, just the gift. At first, she thought it was from a friend or maybe someone who had a crush on her. Seemed harmless, even sweet. But as the day went on, more gifts arrived. A bouquet of roses was left on her car windshield. A box of chocolates appeared at her front door. Each time, no note, no signature. By evening, Hannah's excitement had turned into unease. Someone was watching her. Someone who knew her home, her car, her daily routine. That night, as she curled up on the couch with Milo, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Do you like your gifts? Beautiful?" Her heart pounded. She didn't recognize the number, and something about the message made her skin crawl. She hesitated before replying. "Who is this?" 3 dots appeared, indicating the person was typing. Then came the reply, "You'll find out soon. Happy Valentine's Day." A chill ran down her spine. She stared at the message, dread settling in her stomach. Who was this? A friend playing a prank? An ex-boyfriend trying to get back in her life? Or something much worse? She didn't respond. Instead, she blocked the number and tried to shake off the feeling of being watched. But she couldn't. As the night wore on, Hannah couldn't shake the paranoia creeping into her mind. Every little noise made her jump. Then Milo started growling. His ears perked up, his body tense as he faced the living room window. Hannah's breath caught in her throat. Slowly, she turned her head toward the window and froze. A shadowy figure stood just beyond the glass. She couldn't make out a face, but the silhouette was unmistakable. Someone was there, standing completely still, watching her. Her heart hammered in her chest. She scrambled for her phone and called 911, her voice shaking as she told the dispatcher what was happening. By the time the police arrived, the figure was gone. There were footprints in the snow leading up to the window, but nothing else. No fingerprints, no sign of forced entry. One of the officers tried to reassure her. Probably just some neighborhood kid pulling a prank, he said. Let us know if anything else happens. But Hannah knew this wasn't just a prank. This was something much darker. For the next few days, things only got worse. She started receiving more messages from different unknown numbers. Why are you ignoring me, Hannah? I just want to be close to you. You looked beautiful in that blue sweater today. That last message sent her into a full-blown panic. She had worn a blue sweater that day, which meant whoever this was had seen her. Terrified, she installed security cameras around her house, changed her locks, and started carrying pepper spray everywhere she went. But it didn't stop. Late one night, her phone buzzed with a new message. I don't like that you locked the doors. It makes it harder for me. She felt the blood drain from her face. He had tried to get in. That night, Hannah barely slept. She kept Milo close, listening to every little sound in the house. Then, around 3 a.m., she heard it. A soft scratching at her front door. Milo shot up, barking furiously. Hannah grabbed the baseball bat she kept beside her bed and tiptoed to the living room. The scratching turned into a faint rattling. Someone was trying to pick the lock. Her hands shook as she dialed 911, whispering to the dispatcher that someone was trying to break in. She didn't dare turn on the lights. She just stood there in the darkness, heart pounding, waiting for the police. Then silence. The rattling stopped. The scratching stopped. Had he given up? A few minutes later, flashing red and blue lights filled her street. The police arrived, sweeping the property. But just like before, the intruder was gone. This time, though, they found something. Near the back of her house, hidden in the bushes, was a small pile of items. A black hoodie, a knife, and a collection of Polaroid pictures. Pictures of her. Some taken from a distance, others disturbingly close. Her walking to her car, sitting in a coffee shop, even one through her bedroom window. Hannah felt sick. This wasn't just a stalker. This was someone who had been in her life for months, maybe even longer. The police took the evidence and launched an official investigation. They told Hannah to stay with a friend while they worked to track him down. Then, 2 days later, they had a suspect. His name was Brian Carter, a quiet, seemingly ordinary man who worked at a local hardware store. Hannah didn't recognize him at first. But when the police showed her a picture, her blood ran cold. She had seen him before several times. At the coffee shop she went to every morning. In the aisles of the grocery store. Even once, months ago, holding the door open for her at the post office. He had been watching her all along. When the police searched his apartment, they found even more disturbing things. A shrine dedicated to Hannah. Photos, notes, even strands of her hair collected from public places. And the most chilling part? A handwritten letter, dated for February 14th, that simply read, "If I can't have you, no one can." Brian was arrested and charged with multiple counts of stalking, harassment, and attempted breaking and entering. Hannah, though relieved, struggled to feel safe again. The idea that someone could become so obsessed, so fixated on her without her even realizing, was terrifying. She moved to a new city, changed her number, and stayed off social media. It would take time, but she was determined to reclaim her life. Valentine's Day was never the same after that. While others celebrated love and romance, she would always remember the chilling reality. Sometimes the people who admire you the most are the ones you should fear the most. Story 3. The Murder Pact Gone Wrong. Valentine's Day is meant to be about love and devotion, but sometimes, love can twist into something dark, something deadly. For Rachel Moore and Daniel Carter, what started as a passionate affair ended in bloodshed, betrayal, and a murder plot that unraveled in the most shocking way. Rachel Moore was a 32-year-old elementary school teacher in Cedar Hill, Texas. She was married to her high school sweetheart, Tom, a successful accountant. On the outside, they had a picture-perfect life. A beautiful home, 2 golden retrievers, and a marriage that seemed stable. But behind closed doors, Rachel felt trapped. The love she once had for Tom had faded into resentment. Their marriage had become routine, passionless, and she found herself longing for something more. That's when she met Daniel Carter. Daniel was 28, a personal trainer at the gym Rachel had recently joined. He was charming, confident, and everything her husband wasn't. What started as harmless flirtation quickly spiraled into a full-blown affair. For months, Rachel and Daniel carried on their secret romance, sneaking around, meeting in hotel rooms, stealing moments whenever they could. It was exciting, intoxicating. But soon, the thrill of the affair wasn't enough for Daniel. He didn't just want Rachel in secret, he wanted her all to himself. And there was only one thing standing in the way: Tom. One night, lying in a motel bed, Daniel whispered the idea that would change everything. What if he was gone? Rachel tensed. Gone? Daniel turned to her, his voice low. If Tom wasn't around anymore, we could be together. For real. No more sneaking around. No more hiding. Rachel laughed nervously, brushing it off as a joke. But Daniel wasn't laughing. Over the next few weeks, he kept bringing it up. He painted a picture of a perfect life together. Just the two of them, free from Tom. First, Rachel dismissed it. She wasn't a killer. But the more Daniel talked, the more the idea wormed its way into her thoughts. Divorce wasn't an option. Tom was well-connected, wealthy, and if she left him, she'd walk away with nothing. But if something happened to him, Daniel promised it would be easy. It'll look like an accident. No one will ever know. Eventually, Rachel caved. They made a plan. Tom had a business trip on Valentine's Day weekend. He'd be driving back late at night. That's when they'd strike. Rachel would fake car trouble on a deserted road and call Tom for help. When he arrived, Daniel would be waiting in the shadows. One quick hit to the head, a staged car crash, and Tom's death would look like a tragic accident. It was perfect, foolproof, but nothing ever goes according to plan. February 14th arrived, and Rachel played her part perfectly. She and Tom had dinner as usual. She smiled, kissed him, even exchanged gifts, acting like it was just another Valentine's Day. Then, when Tom got in his car to start the long drive home from his business trip, Rachel set her plan into motion. She drove to the designated spot on the back road, slashed her own tire, and called Tom in a panic. "Babe, my car broke down. Can you come get me?" Tom, being the devoted husband he was, immediately changed course. Meanwhile, Daniel hid in the woods, a tire iron clenched in his hands, ready to strike. Everything was going according to plan, until Tom arrived. As Tom pulled up behind Rachel's car, she stepped out, playing the role of the helpless wife. But the moment he walked toward her, Daniel charged from the shadows, raising the tire iron, ready to strike. What neither of them knew was that Tom wasn't alone. A second pair of headlights suddenly illuminated the scene. Tom's coworker, Mark, had been following behind him. He had planned to surprise Tom with a last-minute meeting and had unknowingly walked straight into an attempted murder. Everything happened in seconds. Mark jumped out of his car, shouting. Tom turned just in time to see Daniel lunging at him. He dodged, and the tire iron barely missed his head. Rachel screamed, caught between panic and shock as Mark tackled Daniel to the ground. Tom, realizing what was happening, wrestled Daniel for control of the weapon. A struggle ensued, and in the chaos, Daniel's own weapon was turned against him. Tom swung the tire iron in self-defense, cracking Daniel's skull with a sickening thud. Rachel collapsed to the ground, shaking as the weight of what she had done finally sank in. The police arrived minutes later. Daniel was rushed to the hospital but was pronounced dead on arrival. Rachel was arrested on the spot. Faced with overwhelming evidence, her slashed tire, her secret affair, her phone records, she had no choice but to confess. She tried to shift the blame onto Daniel, saying he manipulated her into going along with the plan. But the jury didn't buy it. She had plotted her husband's murder, and there was no getting out of it. Tom, betrayed and devastated, sat silently through the trial, unable to comprehend how the woman he loved had planned to kill him. In the end, Rachel was sentenced to 25 years in prison for conspiracy to commit murder. On the outside, their marriage had seemed perfect, but behind closed doors, love had turned into obsession. Desire had become deadly, and in the end, The only thing Rachel and Daniel's plan accomplished was destroying everything they had ever known. Tom never celebrated Valentine's Day again. For most, it was a day for love. But for him, it would always be the night his wife tried to kill him. A chilling reminder that sometimes, the person closest to you is the one you should fear the most. Story 4. The Valentine's Day Intruder. Valentine's Day was never a big deal for Lisa Carter. She had been single for a while, preferring quiet nights at home over dinner dates and romantic gestures. This year was no different. She planned to curl up on the couch with a glass of wine, watch a few horror movies, and call it a night. But what started as a peaceful evening alone turned into the most terrifying night of her life. Lisa, 29, lived in a small apartment on the edge of town. She worked as a freelance writer, which meant she spent most of her time at home. She had always felt safe in her neighborhood. Nothing ever really happened there. On February 14th, she picked up takeout from her favorite Thai restaurant, grabbed a bottle of wine, and settled in for a relaxing night. Around 9 p.m., as she scrolled through movie options, her phone buzzed. "Happy Valentine's Day. Beautiful." The message was from an unknown number. Lisa frowned. She wasn't seeing anyone, and she hadn't given her number out recently. Maybe it was a wrong number or some spam message. She ignored it and went back to her movie. But then another message came. "Why are you ignoring me?" A chill ran down her spine. She hesitated before typing a response. "Who is this?" The reply came instantly. "You'll find out soon." Lisa's stomach twisted. Something wasn't right. She put her phone on silent, locked her doors, and tried to shake off the uneasy feeling creeping over her. An hour later, Lisa had almost convinced herself she was overreacting. Maybe it was just a prank. She was halfway through a suspense movie when, knock, knock, a soft, deliberate knock at her front door. Her body tensed. She wasn't expecting anyone. It was late. Peeking through the peephole, she saw nothing. The hallway was empty. Her heart pounded in her chest. Maybe she had imagined it? She turned away, trying to brush it off. Knock, knock. This time it was louder. Lisa's breath hitched. Someone was out there. Slowly, she reached for her phone and dialed her best friend, Jess. "Hey, Lisa. What's up?" Lisa kept her voice low. "Someone's at my door. I don't know who." Jess was silent for a second. "Are you expecting anyone?" "No." "Did you look outside?" Lisa hesitated. "I don't want to." "What if—" "Knock, knock, knock." Harder this time. More insistent. Lisa's blood ran cold. Jess's tone sharpened. "Lock your doors. Call the police." Lisa nodded, even though Jess couldn't see her. "Stay on the phone with me." Lisa crept to the front door, her hands shaking. Knock, knock. She took a deep breath and finally peeked through the peephole. Her stomach dropped. A man stood there dressed in all black. He wore a hood, and his face was shadowed. Then, as if he knew she was watching, he smiled. Lisa stumbled backward, heart hammering. "Oh my God. What?" Jess's voice was frantic. "There's a man at my door. He smiled at me." Lisa ran to the kitchen and grabbed a knife, her hands slick with sweat. Then, she heard something that made her blood turn to ice. The sound of her doorknob turning. Someone was trying to get in. Lisa's breath came in short, panicked gasps. She hit 911, her fingers trembling. 911. "What's your emergency?" "There's someone outside my apartment. He's trying to get in." "Ma'am, stay calm." "Is your door locked?" "Yes, but he keeps knocking and—" Bang! A loud, violent crash against the door. Lisa let out a scream. Jess was shouting through the phone. "Lisa! Get out of there!" But there was no way out. Her apartment was on the 3rd floor. No fire escape. No back door. She was trapped. "Ma'am, officers are on their way," the dispatcher assured her. But Lisa wasn't sure she had time to wait. The banging continued, harder and harder. Then silence. Lisa held her breath. Had he left? Slowly, she crept toward the door, pressing her ear against it. Nothing. She peeked through the peephole again. The man was gone. Her pulse thundered in her ears. Maybe he realized she had called the police and ran? She let out a shaky breath. Then, from behind her, a soft creak. Her body froze. The closet door behind her was slightly open. Lisa had never left it open. Her entire body went numb with fear. She turned, her hands shaking violently. The door creaked open more. And then, a man stepped out. Lisa screamed as the intruder lunged at her. She swung the knife wildly, catching him in the arm. He grunted but didn't stop. They struggled, knocking over furniture. Lisa kicked, punched, fought with everything she had. Then sirens. Red and blue lights flashed outside. The intruder's head snapped toward the window. He hesitated just for a second. Lisa took her chance. She drove the knife into his side. He let out a guttural scream and staggered back. Then he bolted, rushing toward the front door, yanking it open, and disappearing into the night just as the police arrived. Lisa was shaking so badly she could barely speak when the officers found her. Her apartment was trashed, signs of a struggle everywhere. The police found something even more disturbing. A hidden camera inside her bedroom. It had been there for weeks. The man, her stalker, had been watching her. He had broken in long before that night. He had been living inside her apartment. The police searched the building but found no trace of him. He had vanished. Lisa never slept in that apartment again. She moved across the country, changed her number, and refused to live alone. But the fear never fully left her. The man was never caught. And every Valentine's Day she wonders if he's still out there watching, waiting. Maybe one day he'll come back to finish what he started.